Hello and welcome to There's No Business Like, a podcast where friends and industry colleagues explore topics and interview leaders in our industry of professional theatrical touring.
Hello there and welcome back to There's No Business Like. I'm Katie Miller with Michigan Maven Creative Associates, and I am here with the Pod Squad. Josh
Benson, rocking it from Marion, Illinois at the Marion Cultural and Civic Center.
Brian
Zelmer from Bardavon Presents, and today I'm at the Bardavon in Poughkeepsie, New York.
Danielle.
Hey, it's Danielle Van Hook from the Alden in McLean, Virginia.
Kevin Maynard coming at you from Tallahassee with opening nights at Florida State University.
All right. Well, we have a great conversation for you today. I sat down with Melanie Weir from the Luther Burbank Center for the Arts when we were at WA back in August. We're going to hear that conversation today. Before we get there, though, Melanie talks about a particularly maybe sort of weird for a child topic she liked to do reports on during the course of our interview. So I wanted to ask you all if you did like a report or a presentation on a like sort of a weird topic or dressed up as a historical figure when you were a child for school. What was it and why is it funny to you now?
Katie, unfortunately, I can answer this question in 2.5 ways. One, in approximately the 5th grade, we had to do a report on a historical figure, I think, and dress up as that person. I chose Walt Disney. And I think I was the only person in my dad's clothes. Well, specifically my dad's clothes, but like in father's clothes. And I got points taken off because my mom made me Mickey ears to also wear with it. And apparently Walt Disney didn't actually wear Mickey ears. It was just on theme. Then in high school, we had to do a report on anything. And a girl brought in a mini horse and did a presentation on a mini horse. I wanted to go less. It was the one time in my life I said, you know what? I'm gonna underwhelm. And I went to like Target and I found a book on TRL, if you remember that show. And I did my report on TRL and Carson Daly.
Did you dress up as Carson Daly?
No, we did not have to dress up in his props. I think I brought in the book.
Really great in a book format music videos.
Is this when you tried to order ringtones out of a magazine?
This is approximately that time frame. I never ordered the ringtones though. And then without being provoked in any way, one year on Halloween, I dressed up as Forrest Gump.
I also dressed up as Forrest Gump one Halloween.
It was the same week that we had swimming in gym class. So I had to get out of my Forrest Gump clothes, get in the pool, and then had to have wet Forrest Gump hair in my hat. My bubblegum shrimp hat the rest of the day. So there you go, Katie. Thanks for asking.
You're welcome. I'm glad we could take that walk down memory lane with you, Danielle.
Mm-hmm.
I think we just go right to the interview. I don't know that we need to explore any other.
Nope, we do.
The weirdest thing that I dressed up as, I think in like 5th grade, we had to read a biography. And I went into the library and I chose the first biography that I saw, which happened to be Mayor Richard Daley of Chicago. So I gave a biography dressed up as Mayor Daley about his life. Random facts I now know about. And not going to lie, I got an A on that. I also did not finish the book. So, and then at some point in like sophomore, junior year of high school, I had to do some book report where we could dress up as a character. And so I dressed up as Jem Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird.
I don't think I've ever dressed up for a report or anything like that. The only time I remember dressing up in school was a particular Halloween when I went as Pee Wee Herman, which I don't even remember the costume. I just remember that my dad had the smart idea, quote, around smart, of putting Vaseline in my hair to slick it back because I have very thick curly hair and like regular hair products wasn't working to make it look like Pee Wee Herman's. And that was a nightmare to get out. Let me just tell you. But yeah, that's the only dress up in school story I can think of.
I got nothing. I initially went to a private Christian school. I did have to dress up to be part of a square dancing team.
That counts.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you still square dance?
I don't square dance anymore.
So you've never worn embarrassing clothing for anything?
I've worn a lot of embarrassing clothing, just not for school purposes.
Just conferences.
I would say that this will come as a surprise to no one, but in 2nd grade, I dressed up to do a school report on Eleanor Roosevelt. Very on brand for Katie Miller. All right, friends, we are going to jump into my conversation with Melanie. Hope you enjoy, and we'll talk to you on the other side.
Hey, I'm Melanie Weir. I am Associate Director of Education at Luther Burbank Center for the Arts in lovely Santa Rosa, California in Sonoma County. And I also get to be President of California Presenters, which is a consortium of about 100 presenters across California and other Western and neighboring states.
Excellent. Oh my gosh, Melanie, welcome to There's No Business Like. I am so excited to have you here today. I am taking advantage of the fact that we are in San Diego at the 2024 WA Conference and talking to some of our California colleagues, because otherwise I wouldn't get to see you in person ever because geographically we are so far apart.
Yeah, usually I see you in a box. And this is really nice.
It is super nice. We just want to know all about you. So let's start with sort of how did you get into the arts? What inspired you? And what was your journey to where you are today?
Thank you for asking. And thank you for having me. Like I said, my journey to the arts feels like it was always here. My grandmother was a fine artist, and that was always fascinating to me because by the time I was born, she wasn't doing that work anymore. And so we had these paintings around the house that were really inspiring and beautiful that I never saw her actively doing and making. I'm a very creative person, and that's always been part of my personality, but I never knew where that would head. I remember my daycare provider saying that I should be a Disney artist when I was 7 because I drew so well. And my dad was like, oh gosh, this lady. But it was something that was appreciated, but I don't know that anyone knew how to encourage it really until later. And everybody wanted me to have, open willingness to do anything. And so I was in my first play when I was in, I think, 6th grade. I was not cast in the lead, but in like a secondary role. And I remember being so upset that the lead didn't learn her lines all the way. And I would complain because she was on book on stage. And I was just so upset about it. Like she had this responsibility. And so looking back, that pretty well encapsulates who I am, which is you had a responsibility and you didn't follow through. Mm-hmm. The community engagement specialist part of me is like, oh, well, I'm sure there were other reasons. But I think that proved to me that that the arts were important and that performing was important. So high school, I did drama and I did all the other brainy AP classes and things. So I got into a UC and went to UC Irvine thinking I would be on SNL. That was my goal.
Wow. Okay. So comedy was your thing.
Totally comedy. I mean, I appreciate all forms, but if you spend time with me at all, you know that I like to crack jokes and make people laugh. It makes me happy. But, through some like family stuff, I suffer from depression, which it might be surprised to some people. And it really kicked off when I was in my first quarter of college. And then my grandfather died. My grandma started suffering from depression and I moved home. And from there, it felt like I couldn't do drama anymore because I wasn't in, near LA and I wasn't going to be on the groundlings. And I really had to find myself. My other grandma immigrated from Poland in the 30s. So we can imagine what that was like. And we had family that got lost in the Holocaust. So it's like a complete 180, but I was really interested. Sonoma State University is where I ended up re-enrolling. So I took every class I could take because I wanted to learn our family's story in a different way. This is the grandma that was the fine artist. Not the grandma I moved home to support when my grandfather died, but my grandma that was a fine artist. And so I just really felt a connection and a pull, something I'd always been curious about. Whenever you have like your favorite when you get to choose your topic, I was the kid choosing the Holocaust, which was crazy and heavy. It was part of the sociology department. So I got my BA in sociology. I kind of shied away from drama for a while. And I think it was just because I was sort of grieving and mourning that and sort of protecting myself, pushing it aside because I didn't finish my first goal. I didn't learn my lines, right? Like that gal. I was still on book. All through high school, as I'm doing the drama shows and stuff, I also worked at daycare. So I had this really lovely connection with children. I went there until I was like 12. But then as a teenager, I'm back working there. I come home from college and it was just work here. And even though you've got this horrible stuff that you're going through with depression and trying to figure out, I want to say early life crisis, I had this stable place to be. And all these kids that were just invigorating me. So I had this sort of three-pronged love in life, like sociology and those sorts of topics. And then, which then now I would really say feeds into my fascination, my love, my commitment to DEIB, and then kids, and then the theater. So I had another job in between, and that gal went to work at Luther Burbank Center, where I work, our local performing arts center. And she was in the development department. They needed a part-time assistant. She knew I was finishing up college. I went, loved the people there. That job became a full-time position, and I couldn't do it. But the education and family department had a role. I was in there talking really about my academic work, and they said, well, we're really interested in this background you have with the daycare. Talk to us about that, and talk to us about your theater background. And that was the first time I realized that all three of these things could exist and be in this job. And I tell kids that come to the theater that, you know, for tours or when you go into a classroom to do a speech or whatever, that I didn't know this job existed. Mm-hmm. And I think so many people don't know this job exists. Yeah. And then even within that, our niches, right? Like there's the commercial programming, and what I do for education for theater for youth, theater for young audiences is very particular. And some programs don't have the capacity to have a full-time staff to just do that programming. I feel very, very fortunate. And I feel really heard, because within about the first 6 months that I worked there, like my first solid review, that director of programming, who is still at Luther Burbank Center for the Arts as a vice president now, Anita Wigglesworth, shout out Anita, said, what do you want to do when you grow up? Being kind of silly. And I said, gosh, I really like what you do. She was booking the education and family programming. And she saw that passion, and she recognized the unique ability that someone has to have to really do that job, because you have to be good at a lot of different things, and really helped pull me up and took me to conferences like WA. I mean, WA was my first conference, and I remember feeling so grown up. And then I got introduced to this amazing community. In the years following, she became really involved and on the board of California Presenters, and introduced me to some of those folks and put me through the ringer of what it means to be on a committee and helping. And that made me feel like I was giving back, while also being able to, I don't want to say take advantage, but certainly learn from amazing people in the room. I mean, you interviewed Lenore Naxon, who I would count as huge influence. It's incredible. And it doesn't happen, at least that I see in other industries, quite like it does with us. There's a willingness to pass the baton and share the load.
Yes, there is. I love that. So I definitely want to talk about California Presenters some more. But before we do that, I would love to know a little bit more about your position right now. We're going to talk about community engagement and education. So give me the skinny on what your position is now and the programming that you're in charge of.
There's no skinny. We are robust, as I like to say. We have like 28 different education programs at Luther Burbank Center, standalone. I mean, and
what's the size, before you even do that, what's the size of your venue?
Oh yeah, I forget. People like to know that. 1,611 seat house. We do have standing room only. We are unique in that our space was originally built as a Christian life center. So it's sort of this sprawling campus that originally had pews until 2001. And we had a baptismal font up until, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, that would just be behind a curtain. Okay. It's wild, the history of this building. We have a thrust stage, so we're very unique in that way. So the seats sort of wrap around. We have 1,100 seats on the floor, plus, the whatever that is, 500 or so up top. And that is wonderful for things like comedy. I mean, I would say we are sort of a hot spot for comedy in the Northern California area. For artists, especially like acoustic sets or things like that, it gives a really, really intimate feel that can be challenging for theater for young audiences.
Yeah, for certain.
And we tend to shy away from theater in general because we have a lot of that in the community. We also have a resident company, but I got to book theater for young audiences. And so we talk about seatable capacity or sellable capacity, and it's about 1,350, which is huge.
Which is still huge.
Kids for theater for young audiences.
Yeah, I was doing the same, similar work with school matinees in a 1,500 seat venue.
And we both had natural disasters befell our buildings. That's how we're like, oh yeah, that's us.
We see each other. So. Okay, so 28 educational programs. Tell me more.
My biggest responsibility are the school and family shows. The school shows, particularly, we do anywhere from 25 performances to 33 was our most ever under my purview. And I've been doing this a long time. So obviously pandemic, the amount of product that was available to come in, what I would consider that would be quality product for our audience, for our venue size, for the goals that we have with our educational system in the area, that was about all we could do. And so this year, I went on sale with 19 performances only a couple of weeks ago, and we're already up to 26 performances. Some of those are the same titles, 2 shows a day, but that's a lot. Mm-hmm. Some people do 1-2 performances a year. So it's a full-time job.
Yeah.
And then we use some of those to become family series performances that are for the community on all this work. We charge a little bit for tickets, but it's all very much subsidized through the center itself. And because we're a private nonprofit, that model looks a little different than you might see at a city-owned venue or a college, a venue that's on a college or university campus. But my day-to-day, of course, because I'm associate director, I do have a director, but she and I joke that we share a brain. And she's incredible, so trustworthy. Her latest thing has been saying that I'm just the biggest I'm the cheerleader, I'm the support. And in a lot of ways she is, but she's a visionary. And she's really brought some of those other 28 programs up, including we have over 100-person student mariachi ensemble.
Wow, that's so cool.
It's incredible. And it was born out of summer camps and an idea, and this local then kid in the community who we went for and said, could you help us build this? Because there's a need in the community for after school programs and summer programs, and it's completely free. Our summer camps are completely free. The mariachi program is completely free. When you get to a certain level, our advanced level mariachis get what's called a traje. So those amazing suits they have with the boots, and everybody gets one. Apart from the mariachi program, we have a ballet folklorico program. We have programs online for teachers to support coming to shows. We have a bus fund, which is a grant scholarship program. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to get it all in, and I'm not. Just know we're doing amazing things.
You're doing amazing things.
We have a Latino advisory council, which has its roots starting before my time, and certainly I was not the catalyst to it, but I get to, is how I say it now. I get to lead that committee. And that's amazing work. That's where our big festivals came out of. We have a 5,000 person festival around Independence Day every year for Mexico and some Latin American countries. It's really started as, let's do this for Mexican Independence Day. And that is still where we anchor the date. The Mexican consulate of San Francisco comes every year and does El Grito, which is, if you've heard it, where they do the cry of Dolores, which is, it's a reenactment of the person Miguel Hidalgo in Mexico, who stood on his balcony and said, let's go, let's fight for independence. And he said, Viva Mexico. And so when you hear Viva, Viva, if you've never seen it, watch what they do in Mexico that night, in Mexico City. It's incredible. I'm not from Mexico, but I feel this love and connection to it, particularly through this work.
Wow. So we know each other through the Presenters Consortium Network, and we know each other through our affinity group work with TYA USA. I know what my experience has been like booking matinee programming in the Midwest, but I'm curious what that feels like in your community on the West Coast, Northern California, anywhere from 20 to 35, performances, that sort of thing. You're serving 50,000 kids?
50,000 kids. That's with all 28 programs. Okay. But so just the school shows are over 30,000.
Yeah, that's gigantic.
It's gigantic.
It's so gigantic. So what's your strategy? How do you go about raising those dollars to support those those programs, and what sort of challenges maybe last 5 years coming out of the pandemic have you seen and then overcome?
Well, luckily for me, I just get to spend the money now. I mean, I have a really great, we have a really incredible board. We have a long history of the school show program. In particular, it goes back 39 years.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty great. And so I came into something that was doing very, very well. And I stood on the shoulders of those people, primarily women, who made this program from the ground up. And it's really fun to look back at those brochures and see who's coming, who's not. The person on our, we call our event staff, but like our operations front of house staff said, I asked him, gosh, why did you join LBC one day when we were sitting in the lobby at a school show, because I met everyone and all the kids are inside. And I said, what made you join? And he said, well, I came to a school show. I came to one of these matinees when I was a kid, and we've been around long enough now that people that are on our Latino Advisory Council, people that are on our board have had experiences in this life-changing thing. Did they all become artists? Are they all in arts management or arts administration? No, but creativity and these empathetic, the social emotional learning that happens in the theater is just, to me, invaluable. It makes better humans.
Yeah. So what's your strategy in terms of booking and programming now? So, because we've talked a lot about sort of like balancing needs of curriculum with inspiration, with things that are going to appeal to kids, but also pass the muster of school administrations in this day and age. So what pool are you swimming in, and what's your strategy right now?
I'm finally getting back, I think, to like pre-pandemic strategy, which is it's a balance. I'm trying to find shows that fit a pre-K through 12th grade audience. That's a little bit unusual. A lot of folks might focus on K through 6, K through 4th even. Some folks can go into the older audiences. Some folks can't. I'm trying for all of that. We have a certain quality of programming. We have a big enough house that I can't do a puppet show, for example, unless they're large scale puppets. I want them all to have curriculum tie-ins. I want many of them to be book titles, because I need that in order for accessibility reasons. Teachers need the book titles to justify coming. I strongly try to get, a few really wonderful artistic gems in that are things that I may have seen at a conference, or works that I've been talking about with an agent, a trusted agent or colleague that I've heard about on like one of our Zoom calls. So I try to get those in there. And I try to get a mix of like spectacle and just different art forms. I know every year I've got to get kind of a science show in there. And so it's a balance. I'm not going to put 4 science shows, and you look at what you have available and you fill those slots. And I used to be color-coded and Post-its and how many grades and look at this and showing, and really working collaboratively with my programming, with the director of programming at the time. And now I've done it long enough that I go, I can kind of know I need more middle school hard shows to find.
Very hard. Okay. Middle school grades are very hard.
It's very hard, and certainly not at this scale. And I think what happens is you get a lot of, and it's great work. It's beautiful work for social and emotional learning, especially from international companies, that tears my heart out. And I want a book, but they're not going to come. And I get it. From the teacher perspective, you've got to have a solid case that whatever you're bringing your students out of class for, and asking permission from 3, 4, 5, 6 teachers that day, it's got to have a strong curriculum tie-in. And it's hard. It's hard to be a teacher. It's hard to get those permission slips back. Middle school tends to be a tough one, but I found some really great companies that I trust, and I look at their work and follow their work and talk with artists and agents and other presenters to see what's out there, because they're worth it, and we got to get them in the theater. They're our next generations of Katie's and Melanie's or whomever that are going to be doing this work moving forward. Or they're going to work at Google, and they need to be creative, and they need to have either they need to love going to theater, or they want to be donors in the future. Like this all connects in ways that we don't always think of when we're stuck going, what show do I have to fill?
So building off of that, you mentioned youth and family programming as well. So like public programming.
Yeah.
So I know my experience being a parent, myself, and then watching families sort of return to life after, post-pandemic. Priorities have changed. Attention has changed. Where families can spend their time and are choosing to spend their time is different. So what sort of impacts have you seen, and have you had to change your strategy around family programming?
We are diehard fans in Sonoma County for acrobat shows. Chinese acrobat shows are our jam. And so that has been a staple every year. It's just an anchor, and it's almost a given because we have these longstanding relationships with these groups that come through. So the pandemic really affected visa getting abilities. And there is a group that we've worked with over 25 years that no longer tours in the US right now. So that means I now have an every other year acrobat model that I had not had to deal with. So were subscriptions down last year because of that? Were single tickets down because I didn't have that anchor show in my series? I don't know. But what I do know is that kids age out of programs. That's a problem for anybody that does a youth series. Parents tend to overestimate how mature their children are. So what I can sell out for a classroom of third graders is age 8. A parent would say that show's too baby for my child. And it's just wild to me that there is that perception. Now, maybe it's true. Maybe they're very sophisticated. You know your child best, but it just hurts my heart a little bit. And of course, I put all this hard work into it. I have seen a drop, and I think that nationally we've seen a drop in subscriptions, and subscription-based series are nearly gone in our industry where they used to be the backbone. And we're still looking at these niche areas that have these models. And so we're based on a subscription model, and those numbers dwindle. So we've tried to do the flexible thing. We've tried to add some benefits for folks to entice them to continue to be subscribers and continue to be subscribers past age 8. And those are some of the things. Those have been some of the more recent challenges, along with the pandemic closed down a lot of touring companies that we used to work with that were wonderful.
Yeah, the amount of work that's available in this part of the field in particular has changed. There is a particular challenge, and actually one of the sessions here at the WA conference was about censorship, and we didn't even really touch too much in the youth and family space, but that has been a topic that we have been discussing as a field for a while.
Wow.
Because there's a lot of consternation around what is going to classrooms, right? And so I know that we, within our affinity group work, have heard stories from colleagues about particular shows being shut down or challenged, or they're having to make compromises to the work just so students will still have access to something.
Yeah, I mean, Northern California, I don't know if this is going to be a surprise to your listeners, is liberal. So we haven't had as much of those challenges, but we still face the small things, like if a title has the word stupid in it. There's a very famous book that has the word stupid in it, and I love it, and it's amazing. And I don't particularly think of it as a bad word, but even my young kids are like, oh, that's a bad word. And I get it. I get why we don't want that to be shown to second graders, and I don't know what level of respect and whatever specific things that each classroom is teaching, but we've gotten a lot of feedback that you can't say that word. It's so wild. In my household, we call it a medium bad word. But it's just, these are the nuances of things. And I know there's been all this talk around nude tights, and they can't be nude color because then it looks like flesh. And we are trying to also challenge people in their ideas and push people into discomfort and bring joy and all of these really nuanced things that unfortunately also have the responsibility and the burden of hearing some tough feedback and knowing when to say, actually, we're going to keep doing this, or how do we deal with this? Do we say no to bringing something to our stage that has the word stupid in it?
A great resource for having these discussions actually around these very nuanced issues is a place like California Presenters Network. So let's talk about that for a moment. So you mentioned that you have over 100 member organizations as part of Cal Presenters, and you've been present since 2019.
Yeah.
And so let's just talk a little bit about what does it mean to be president of a volunteer president, by the way, of a nonprofit that is serving that many member organizations stretched across north to south, across the West.
I always say it is a humbling experience, because when I went to my first conferences and when I went to the first California Presenter Conference and I looked at these amazing women in power, I'd never seen women in power like that. People who looked like me, people who wore dresses and, like they looked fashionable and amazing. And then people took them seriously. And I could point to 6, 7 people in the room and say, I want to learn something from her, and I want to learn something from her. And wouldn't you know it, California Presenters gave me that opportunity. Everybody was so willing to say yes, to say, sure, come to dinner. Happy to talk with you. And I never wanted to out and out say, ask for advice, but it gave me the door to create relationships with the people so that when I was comfortable, I could ask for advice. When I was asked to join the board, I was asked to fill a seat for someone who had to abruptly leave. So my experience was a little bit different than, maybe some other people's. But the person who was president of the board was Lenore Naxon. And watching that woman work a boardroom is incredible. Watching her in a meeting, I learned so much from her. And she was one of the people that I pointed to and said, that's someone I would like to be a mentor. Shout out to California Presenters Leadership Program, which has mentor and mentee cohorts every year, and we choose about 3 people that are looking for something in the field. You have to apply, and then we specifically pair you with someone in the industry in California, presenters, which might be in California or like Nevada, who knows. And those people have a year-long mentorship that we facilitate, but is very personalized. And there have been incredibly deep bonds built from that. We have that builds for us a pipeline of leaders to come onto the board. Many of our board members were participants in that program. My vice president, Allie Haynes Hamblin, who you've had on the show, and is like not only friend of the pod, friend of the industry and the world at large. This woman gets it done. And she is like my shining beacon of hope, and is I couldn't say it. We should just have a podcast just about like Allie shout outs. But that's how I met Allie. It was my first CP, and she was in the mentorship program. I always joke that I wasn't picked for the mentorship program and that I was bitter about it. But I'll like be like, oh, not that I got in it. But I was able to make these relationships and find strong, amazing women who I was looking for tutelage from. There are men too, but there's something. If you've met Lenore, you know what I mean.
Oh, yes.
There's a command, and I wanted to know how to do that. And I had done main stage public booking before, but I wanted to stay on this path and still hone my skills. So when I was tapped as like, do you think you'd want to do this? The president who was immediately before me said, think about it when I rotate off. And I said, give me 2 years, because my kids were little. Well, like 3 months later, she left the industry. Someone was interim for a little bit that had been on our board treasurer. And then he called me and said, could you please be president? So here I was again, filling this role, stepping into something. And I didn't have the immediate past president. This was early December 2019. So March 2020. I mean, I feel like I had barely been president. I had one in-person board meeting, my first in-person board meeting. I was so proud that the conference was ready because that was in May. And I had thought of this like great initiative and like some vision stuff, which for me could kind of get lost in the mire. And I felt like California Presenters was giving me an opportunity to show leadership in a way that I didn't have in my other role, right? I'm an associate director and I'm not doing the public programming. So there's less of a spotlight, which is good in some ways, but in other ways, I'd like to showcase some leadership opportunities. So I sure showcased them come March, and it started, and it was the right person at the right time in the right job, I think. When it first started, people were saying, wow, this is so great, because of some of the initiatives we put forth. But as I've really, as the years have passed since those first bleak hours of the pandemic, those first bleak months and years, I really do believe they're compliments. I don't think they're shining me on, and I've come to accept that, yes, it was the right person, right time for the job.
How do you have that confidence? That just strikes me because as a woman in the field, you know, and we work in youth and family programming, which sometimes is really overlooked and is really downplayed, right? The importance that we, and the roles that we play in the field. And then to step into a leadership role like that and to come to that own self-belief in what other people are telling you. How do you do that?
I find that I've really leaned into the strength of, I might not know the answer, but I know someone who could. Let me connect you. I'm really good at that. I like to say I like to have fun. I like to laugh. And people say, oh, wow, it's so welcoming. But there's a logic behind it and a reasoning. Maybe I came to it after I was like trying to justify that this is my leadership style, but it's like anti-colonial. I'm not good at the board, you know, motions and the this and the that. I've learned. I'm okay at it. And I'm really good with a spreadsheet, but I think that I just have come to realize where my strengths are. And my strengths are in the connecting of people, in pushing things forward, knowing the worth of work. I think my strengths are in valuing DEIB work. We call it IDEA at CP. I know I can make a joke and crack a joke. I know I can write a thoughtful speech, you know, and you sort of lean into that. And you lean into what you can do. I volunteered to help CP, was tapped to be a board member because I was good at that volunteering. I proved myself and then kept speaking up and kept following through on what I had promised. And people like Lenore, people around the table, I'm thinking of Rebecca Carson, who was VP for ages, recognized it and started to rely on me. And when people like that pay you a compliment, your confidence just goes way up.
I love that. I think it's important to reflect on that, actually. I mean, we're of the same generation. We're pretty close in age. And I think it's like elder millennials were kind of sandwiched in between baby boomers, right, that have been in leadership positions, and then the Gen Z that's coming up. And I feel sometimes that we get a little like lost in the mix a little bit, particularly as women. So I love the self-reflection and that recognizing your strengths.
Somebody recently asked me at this conference, and I'm not going to tell you who, she was so sweet, but she sort of asked me to be her mentor. And I was like, no, you don't want me. Like, I don't know anything. And that should not be my gut response. And everyone that I've told that to has said, like, what do you mean? Of course. So I think that's our trouble. We were taught to be, demure is the new hot word, but we were taught, our generation, and I see it in men too, and in trans folks, we're taught that we need to be humble and kind and do the work and pay our dues. And then we're also now, as younger generations, trying to honor them when they say, nope, this is my boundary. And we're going, gosh, I wish I knew how to do that. We have something to learn from everybody. We just do, even if it's that we don't connect as humans and I'm walking away now. But there's always something to learn. This is like one of my mottos, is that everybody's strength is also a weakness. I can hyper focus on a task and push myself and be dead exhausted over it, which in some cases is great. I mean, sometimes you need that. You need that show must go on mentality. And sometimes you need a partner or yourself or a look in the mirror, or in my case yesterday, my stomach was hurting, and like that's my reminder to go back to my room and watch some Netflix or listen to my podcast. Obviously, there's no business like, and then just chill, like take care of myself. And that's something I also learned by going to therapy in those young years when I was having that identity crisis. That was something that was really hard for me. I remember that he would be like, oh, how do you do all this? Because I was like A+ student, writing lists, everything. I mean, down to 15 minutes. I was so busy, and I would build in 15-minute breaks. And he was like,
feels familiar.
Yeah, we're crazy people, but we were taught that that's what you have to do, right? And we were put pressure on in school because we were probably high performing. God, are we the same person?
We might be.
And so it was like so freeing when he said, you don't have to do that. Why do you do that to you? That's a lot of pressure on yourself. What would happen if you didn't do that? And I was like, well, I would feel disorganized.
I think I would fall apart, like if I didn't do that.
Yeah, you do. And so there are times when I do it still, like there are times when I have that crazy priority list, but it's like a switch goes off. I go, okay, my anxiety is picking up and this will help. Or the anxiety is not picking up, like I'm not picking up on that. That is just going to make me more crazy. and I'm going to go into somewhere not good. Another help has been kids. I got to get home. I got to see my babies, love them. And this can wait.
Yeah.
People in our industry like to say it's not brain surgery. It's not. It's very important.
Yeah.
But it's not as immediate as it feels sometimes. Sometimes it is. Sometimes
you have a disaster and the show's going to start in 15 minutes. Like, yes, that's immediate. You have to deal with that. Then. But most things can wait till tomorrow.
Most things can, or at least until you put your kids to bed, and then you can go hop on remotely, because we're so lucky. Our generation knows that there was a time when you couldn't.
Yes.
I couldn't sit on my cell phone in the school show, in the lobby of school shows and read my emails. You know, it had to wait. So there are some benefits to that. There's some not benefits to that for us crazy people. I shouldn't say crazy. For us people that like to make ourselves like manic about it. But yeah, it's a balance. And certainly in my high stress times, I lean in more to that, and I go, oh, stop. Go see the kids.
Yeah.
Have a Coca-Cola. Why don't you?
Well, and that takes practice.
Yeah. Years on the planet, I guess.
Yeah.
And watching other people, learning from other people. Learning from my own mistakes has been huge.
Thank you for being transparent about that. I think we have such work to do in the mental health space in our industry, but the transparency really helps. And I'm watching sort of a pendulum swing, I think, right now, in terms of like figuring out where is the balance and like supporting our colleagues and putting that sort of thing first, also having to get the work done and live our lives on, in our day-to-day thing. So it's going to be an interesting thing to watch, but I think honest, transparent conversations about that really do help. I know you're probably expecting this. I have a time machine, and we're going to hop in it together. And I want to take you back to your first year at Luther Burbank. Yeah. So 19-ish years ago. And, looking forward, what do you know now that you wish you had known then when you started that job?
I think it would be what we just talked about, that some stuff can wait until tomorrow. I could be better at this than I ever think I could. It is going to bring together all of the things that I love in this world, from spreadsheets and weird numbers. Like, I'm so good at math, right? I got 5 on my AP calculus test. It's one of my greatest joys in life, or greatest brag moments. But I didn't want to be a CPA, right? So that there is something out there. There's a job out there for everyone that is hard but can bring them joy, and that will give something to the world, is meaningful. That might mean that you volunteer somewhere. That might mean that you're the best cashier at my local, supermarket. There's something for you that you will love. It will be hard, but you will love it too. And that will bring you joy. 19 years, that's insane, because I found what made sense for me early. I'm so lucky.
Mm-hmm. So what do you love most about working in the performing arts industry today?
Gosh, I love the people. I love the humans I meet. It's layered because there's my colleagues here at conferences like this who are incredible, and people who I can learn things from every day, and people that I wouldn't always expect. Sometimes the conversations are like, oh my gosh, I love your nail polish. And sometimes the conversations are like, look what we saw on that stage. Look at how Indigenous artists are being represented. I can't wait to bring this back to my person who books dance to tell them about, like, oh my gosh. And then, of course, my interactions with my colleagues at my organization and in my community, teachers I know, like, it's the human connections. And the kids. I love those stinking little kids when they come in the lobby and they wave at me. And I smile. They don't know me, but I know them. I've gotten hugs in Costco from kids. It's the best. I'm like, this is why you do it. I brought this, and they're the best. And after the pandemic, a big shift I noticed with middle school that we were talking about, how I know this matters, is I always wave at kids, right? Like, I don't care. It tends to be the pre-K through second shows where they wave back and they're so excited. Occasionally I get those like 4th graders. It was a middle school show and I'm waving, and middle schoolers were waving back and not rolling their eyes. It wasn't sarcastic. We're waving back and smiling. And I was like, we did it.
It meant something.
It means something. And it means something to them when they're being like too cool and in their hormones. I get it, but it was like, they're showing me, and they've missed this too.
Well, that's a great note to end on. Oh, thank you so much for spending this time with us here at the conference, which I know is so busy, but it was such a pleasure to finally actually get to see you in person after knowing each other for years on Zoom. And and thank you for sharing everything that you do. And
should we start like writing down all of the things that we do, like what our lives journey was? I feel like there's going to be we could like circle them and do the red string thing and be like, we're the same. But we find a lot of that in this world, this community.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, this is a week that I was just jazzed to listen to. And I'm so glad that we finally got Melanie on the podcast to talk about all the great things that her and her center are doing in the youth and family space. And she's definitely somebody that I want to reach out and talk to, because just the sheer number of programs that she's doing is just a lot more than I am. And I think I have a lot to learn from that. But like, I just kept thinking about doing that many programs a year, the costs that exist in touring across the country. And she's in the West, which just is a lot harder to tour. Like, it must be a challenge every year to find things that are new and things that, can get routed all the way over to her.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something we talked about a lot on mic and off mic. And it's been a conversation, Danielle, that I know you and I have had with colleagues in the TYA space. It's a problem that venues have less money to put towards commissioning. And then in turn, artists have smaller amounts of money or no money to work with in developing new work. But there is a cool new program that I'm involved in, the TYA Tour Development Collective, that's launching its pilot year right now, that is looking to meet some of this need and bring artists and venues together to fund new touring work in a collective fashion. So essentially, venues that have a little bit of money and want to work with artists can join the collective, and then artists that are developing work to tour in the 26-27 season can apply. And if chosen, they can then pitch the venues. And they could very well walk away with a new investor and a partner in their work, which is very cool. Venues and artists need to finalize their commitments or applications by February 17th, which is coming up, of 2025. So if you want to learn more or have questions or want to be added to the communication list for the future, you can reach out via the podcast social media, and I can personally email you more information about the program. I love this because the idea is to really, in a focused and impactful way, bring these parts of the industry together and fill this gap and help new work make it into the marketplace, which we know is really tough to begin with and has been even harder since the pandemic. So I personally am grateful for the steering team and their innovation and their work on this. And then I'm grateful to those that have said yes so far in trying something new and taking a bite out of this problem in a collaborative way. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this might play out. And I think it's going to be successful, but it's going to be an interesting experiment. And I'm really hopeful that we can help artists bring great new work to our youth and family audiences.
Thanks for bringing Melanie to the podcast. I got to meet her along with you in the PLC meetings that happen monthly, Presenter Leadership Consortium meetings. And, she was always a quick wit on those calls. But when we got to meet her in person in San Diego, it was just such a joy. And it's not a surprise to me to learn that comedy is such an important part of her, past and in her career. But I also enjoyed learning more about the work that she does and find out the really cool things that she's not only doing at her venue, but in California Presenters.
I'm really impressed with some of the things in the venue that are the community engagement outreach things. I mean, like the over 100 students in the mariachi program, and then the students in the ballet folklorico program. Like, it is so incredibly evident that she is so connected with the community, and that they really program based on the committees and the community committees, and the input that they receive and how well connected they are.
Yeah, bravo to that board of that development office for being able to keep those programs free. I mean, that's a testament to not only the quality of the programs, but just the involvement of the community to want to keep those things happening and keep the arts accessible to their young people, which is really incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you guys on that. I think it's so great to find what it is in the community and use that as the springboard to grow off of, to create programming and to make the programs that your community actually needs, rather than the things that are maybe easy for you to do. The other thing that just struck me kind of throughout Melanie's interview was, I guess, her awareness of self and just like openness really to share what that journey has been. Especially up at the top, being so open about having that depressive time kind of in her younger years, and how she was able to get through it, and then how she works with that now to kind of know what those triggers might be, and to be able to like stay healthy for her kids and for her community and for the people around her. And in some ways, I feel like when she talks about her leadership style, you see a lot of that, because I think she says it's like an anti-colonial way of like leading board meetings, but it sounds a little bit like a more relaxed version, kind of playing into her strengths as a people connector, community builder type. And I think that comes with a lot of soul searching. And I want to remember that whenever I'm having a hard time and feeling like I'm not fitting into a place that was maybe not built for me.
Talk about remembering, Danielle. I just want to thank Katie and Melanie for their vulnerability and their honesty about the feelings about when you talked about being elder millennials and just being sandwiched between baby boomers and Gen Z, and how how you feel being lost in the mix there. And as a Gen Xer who was actually forgotten about, and we don't care because it happens to us all the time, I just want to say I hear you. So
there's one quote from Melanie that I absolutely loved, really focused on TYA programming and the programs that they have there at the center. When she said, they don't all become artists, but the creativity, empathetic, social, emotional learning is invaluable. And I think that is one of the most important statements of this entire interview, is just, that's it. Like that's the answer.
Yeah, I did really appreciate that part of the conversation as well. I mean, this is like, that encompasses, I think, why I continue to stay involved in this field, and why I continue to advocate for like theater for young audiences and artistic experiences for younger folks, and really just the community in general, even in programs that aren't necessarily completely angled towards reaching a younger audience, because like it just makes a well-rounded human. It makes somebody who is honestly, like we can run through all the stats that you two talked about, or we can talk about a bunch of different ones. I mean, it literally affects every aspect of our lives. And the more we stay involved with the arts, like just honestly, the happier we are as humans. And so that itself is an amazing feat. And, it's like Melanie was saying, like, it's not always the things that we think about, or, even the connections that we're even to make. I mean, I'm sure that there's so much that is happening inside us and in our communities because of the arts that we still don't know the implications of.
I think we should also mention that since we're bringing up California and it's now January 24th, we just want to send out our hearts to all of the people that were affected by the fires. And it may not have been in Melanie's area, but we know there was at least 2 venues lost and hundreds, if not thousands, of homes, and it's just heartbreaking. And so, I know it's hard being on the East Coast to do something. I knew of a few people who had lost everything, and obviously I contributed to helping them with some funding. But you feel like you wish you could do more, and so just wanted to make sure we lift that up and raise that there too, since we're talking about California.
Thanks, friends, for once again joining us for There's No Business Like Brian said, we do want to make sure that we're remembering our friends in California. There'll be some links in our show notes to some organizations that you can maybe check out, make a donation to, or find more ways to help our artist friends in California. Also, if you want more information on the TYA Tour Development Collective, please reach out to us via our social media, and I am happy to send you more information on that new program. So thanks again for joining us, and hope to see you next time on There's No Business Like.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to There's No Business Like. Our producers and hosts are Brian Zelmer, Josh Benson, Kevin Maynard, Katie Miller, and me, Danielle Van Hook. Views expressed in this podcast are ours alone and are not reflective of the organizations we are a part of. Keep up with us at nobusinesslike.com. There you'll find links to all of our episodes and socials. If you like this podcast, give us a like, a follow, a review, or our favorite, a 5-star rating. Oh, wait, what was that site? I got it, don't worry. It is nobusinesslike.com. Do I sound out bus-I-ness every time I type it? Yep, sure do. Stay in touch, my friends.
Anyway, food for thought. Not like we have to answer that now.
Food for thought is good. I like food for anything. I like food for feelings.
Mostly feelings.
Food is good in all kinds of ways. Yeah.
Okay. Think about this. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to There's No Business Like. I'm Katie Miller with Michigan Maven Creative Associates, and I am here with Kevin. Why are you laughing at me?
Look, it was the comment of like, gotta figure out how to do this because I'm going to open it the exact same way I've opened it for most episodes. That's what cracked me up. That's why I was laughing. It sounded good though, so too bad you stopped.
Well, you can't do that because type A girl over here cannot
Don't
feel like I'm
me.
doing a bad job while I'm trying to redo.
Put a post-it note over me.
Okay, let's give this a shot again.
All right. Radio rules starting now.
Yeah. Hold on. Katie's got to think of how to start this.
Brett, Kevin.
I like the bride.
Yeah, it's all me. I'm the bad one. I'm the bad influence.
Yeah, seriously.
Are you ready, Kevin?
I'm good.
Give me a second. Let's see if I can kill his video feed.
That-
Is he gone for you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, you're welcome.